Hey everybody, have you ever had a moment when you felt the pressure to be impressive to somebody? You know what I mean? Man, I struggle with this so much. My wife is the director of Green Bay Bible Camp. Some of you watching this, you know that. And so I get to work there. And one of the things that's cool about Green Bay is we love our boats, right? Like if you've been to Green Bay Bible Camp, you know boats on the waterfront are a big deal. And I know for us as a family, when we moved here, literally from Lethbridge, Alberta, in the middle of the prairies, boats were not a thing for us at all. And I grew up in Manitoba. My wife grew up in Saskatoon, in Saskatchewan. We were boats were not my thing, but I remember coming to Green Bay and just thinking to myself, I would love to begin to drive boats. And I thought it was so cool. And then I watched our people from our camp staff drive the boats, and our boats are they're real boats. They're serious surf boats. They're really expensive. And one of the things that I hated about our camp is we have this skinny little kind of gap between the two docks that we have to drive these boats through all the time. And I remember just being so scared of driving our boat through there. Number one, because if you ever touch the side of the dock, it's going to scratch up the boat. And literally it costs over $1,000 to fix the scratches. It's real. But second, everyone stands and watches. And I remember just feeling this immense pressure of trying to be an impressive boat driver driving these expensive boats between the docks. And I always felt this need to kind of measure up when I was driving the boat. And then it would get worse for me. I have my friend Fred. Fred's awesome. The thing about Fred is what I would call an operator. There's nothing Fred can't drive that I'm aware of. He can fly planes, he can drive trucks, he can drive skidoos. More Fred is one of the best operators that I know. And when I talk to friends of Fred, they talk all about how great of an operator he is. So I feel this pressure when I'm around him that I should be I need to know how to drive stuff as well. And here's the thing about Fred. Fred has a really wonderful boat. It's a beautiful boat. He loves to surf, and he loves it when other people drive so he can surf. And when we're together, he always looks at me as being the one to drive his boat. And I got to be honest with you, I feel incredible pressure in that moment because I want to be impressive to Fred. Fred is an incredible boat driver and I'm terrible. And I always wonder, will I measure up? Isn't this stupid? I'm almost 50 and I wonder, will I be able to measure up to Fred? Mostly, will I not drive over him when I'm trying to pick him up after he's dropped off the wave? I think that would be a big win. But also, will I be able to measure up? And if I don't measure up, will he still like me? Will he still want to be my friend? Will we still roll out together? Hey, have you ever had a moment where you tried to impress someone else around you? What happened when you did that? Let's go ahead, turn into our circles, and let's talk about a moment when we've tried to impress somebody else. Go ahead and do that. One of the questions we all ask is as I am, will you like me? This is a real question that we wrestle with. And when I read the scriptures, I think in the scriptures, there's lots of different people who also ask that question. As I am, will you like me? This is a human question that we have. Will I be impressive enough for you to actually like or appreciate me? Okay, so there's this story of this lady named Hagar, and it's found in Genesis chapter 16. Here's the quick background on the story. So Hagar lives in a tribe, and the leader of the tribe is a man named Abraham. Abraham is married to a lady named Sarah. And we're told in Genesis about chapter 14 that God had made a promise to Abraham and Sarah that they would be the parents of a great nation, that their descendants would become more numerous than the stars in the sky or the sand on the seashore. They would have just massive amounts of descendants. But what happens is Abraham and Sarah are super old, way old, and they have no kids. And so they're starting to wonder, will God actually follow through on his promise? And so what Sarah does is she decides she doesn't think God's going to follow through. And so she puts together her own plan, and she takes one of her servants, Hagar, and she gives her servant to Abraham so that he could have children through Hagar that could belong to Sarah. It's this crazy, totally messed up plan. Well, what happens is Hagar has a child named Ishmael. And she has this baby, and all of a sudden, here's Hagar. Essentially, her life has had very little value. She has really been a possession to this group of people, but now she becomes the mother of the child of the leader of the tribe, Abraham. And for the first time, she begins to feel like she has significance, like she has matter, like she values. But what happens is as she feels this, her master Sarah becomes very angry. And in fact, she feels again like she's been totally ripped off. Like now all of a sudden Hagar is somebody and she's nobody and she really doesn't have the children she was planning to get. And so she becomes abusive to Hagar, so much so that she sends her away from the tribe. And Abraham, the father of her child, says, do with her whatever you want. I wonder if Hagar in this moment, where she's been abandoned by her people, she's been rejected by the father of her child, she's been left to die in the desert. I wonder if in this moment she had the question, hey, as I am right now, does anyone actually care for me? And I wonder if because she was from a religious community, do you know what I mean? If she actually asked the question, hey, God, right now, as I am, do you, God, care for me? I wonder if you've ever asked that question. Have you ever found yourself in a position where maybe you failed, you feel like a failure, you feel rejected, like you don't measure up? If you've ever asked the question, hey, as I am right now, am I impressive enough for you to care for me? Would anyone care for me? Have you ever asked the question in moments maybe of failure where before God you've gone could God even care for me right now? Hey, here's the answer I want you to hear. This is the main point I want to make, is that as you are, God cares for you. Right now, as you are, God cares for you. And this was Hagar's experience. So here's what happened. Hagar ends up in the desert, left to die, abandoned by her people. And as she's in the desert in Genesis chapter 16, verse 7, the angel of the Lord comes to her. Listen to what it says. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I'm running away from my mistress, Sarah, she answered. Here's this deal. Hagar's by herself, alone in the desert, being left to die. And all of a sudden, God comes to her. God pursues her. I remember when Peyton, our son, was really small, and we were doing a camp that was out in the middle of the mountains down in southern Alberta. And what had happened is late at night, I had gone to do a fireside with all the campers, and Jen had put PK and Cole to bed. Peyton was about 3, Cole's about 1. She put them to bed, went and got some hot chocolate. And when she came back to the trailer, which was kind of in the bush just at the base of the mountain, she saw Cole sleeping there, but she couldn't find Peyton anywhere. And all of a sudden, she looks around the trailer. He's not there. She jumps out of the trailer. She starts running into the trees. It's late at night. We're in a forest. There was bears in the area during the day, so we were really aware of that. And she begins to scream and yell for her child. And she begins to look and look. And then she comes running towards us because she's about to go get us to start a huge search because now we're in panic mode. And as she comes running past the trailer, she hears this little voice that says, Mom, Mom. And she stops. She's like, Peyton, where are you? And he goes, here. And she looks under the trailer, and Peyton had crawled under the trailer and had actually fallen asleep under the trailer. And she's like, Peyton, what are you doing under the trailer? And he's like, well, I heard a squirrel, so I thought I'd chase it here. And I'm like, you should probably run now because your mom's going to chase you and end your life for something like that. It was really fascinating. When Jen came to me, there was still this incredible intensity that was a part of her because she'd been pursuing her child. Hey, it's one thing to pursue someone that you're in relationship with. It's another thing altogether when someone pursues you that's not actually in relationship with you. And you guys, this is what is amazing about God. That even if we've broken relationship with God, even if we haven't done what we're supposed to do, even when we're not spiritually impressive, God still pursues us. Here's the point I want you to know, that as you are, God cares for you. God pursues you just like he did Hagar. He pursues us. The second thing that happens is this, as we keep reading in the story. It goes on in Genesis chapter 16, verse 9, it says, Then the angel of the Lord told her, Go back to your mistress and submit to her. And the angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord also said to her, You are now with child, and you shall have a child. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. Did you hear that? What it says, he comes to Hagar and he says, Hey, listen, I want you to name your child Ishmael, which means God hears you. And all of a sudden, Hagar realizes that she has a God who hears her. Man, isn't it amazing when we have people who hear us, who understand us, who understand our situation? Especially when things are hard, we're just looking for people who have actually experienced what we are experiencing. And we have all sorts of things like that. When you haven't made a team and you thought you were going to make it, and all of a sudden you get cut from that team and it hurts so bad, and what you really want is someone who understands the pain that you're going through, because there's really no way they can fix it. You just want them to understand, right? Or maybe you're someone who's lost a loved one. I remember when I was in high school, my dad died really suddenly. And I remember the kind of pain that I felt and experienced, and the people that I wanted to be with were people who understood my pain because they'd gone through it themselves as well. You know what's amazing about God? He says to us that he actually understands our experiences here on earth. Why? Because he's gone through them too. He hears us, he understands us because he's actually walked through the types of situations we've walked through. In Hebrews chapter 4, it says, "Therefore, since we have a great high priest who's gone through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. So let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy to find help in our time of need." Here's what's amazing, you guys. When you realize who God is, you begin to understand that whatever situation is, whatever your perception is, the reality is that we have a God who doesn't ignore us. We have a God who understands us. And here's the point I want to make. As you are, God cares for you. Even when you're not impressive at all, he cares for you. First, he pursues you. Second, he hears you. And then third, he sees you. You're not overlooked. You're valued. So listen to what it says in Genesis 16, verse 13. It says this: "She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. 'You are the God who sees me.' For she said, 'I have now seen the one who sees me.'" This is so amazing to me, you guys. We have a God who's invested in our journey. He's not just kind of weirdly present, but he's actually seeing what's going on. He understands what happens. He's invested in what's taking place in our lives. We have this God who knows us, who sees us. Now, in one sense, we're getting excited about that because it means that we don't have a God who's distant, but a God who's really present. In another sense, we all wonder, there's certain things I've done that I'm not sure I want God to see. I don't know if I actually want someone to know these things. But here's what is amazing about God. He sees us even at our worst, and still he values us. Still he values us. Still he loves us. Still he's caring for us. Here's the point I want to make. As you are, God cares for you. Because as you are, he pursues you. As you are, he understands you. As you are, he sees you and he values you. And when we understand this, you guys, here's what's amazing about this. When we understand this, especially when we make mistakes, while our natural tendency is to try to hide and run away, especially from people that we think are really important, we want to hide these failures. When we actually understand who God is, instead of running and hiding from him, we bring them to him. We bring them to him, we confess them, we surrender to him, we come to him in these moments, and he begins to transform and change us, because here's the other reality. As we are, God cares for us, but because he cares for us, he refuses to leave us as we are. And he wants to transform and change us. Now, if you're like me, and maybe if you're like Hagar, you hear about this God who really cares for you. But you might ask the question, hey, why is it so hard for me to actually experience him? And here's what I think the issue is, you guys. I think sometimes the reason we don't experience him is because we don't trust him. So God comes to Hagar, and in this midst, he says this, she gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me, for I have now seen the one who sees me." What happens is Hagar sees God, and then she responds to God. And what God says to her is he says, hey, you need to go back to your people. I have a plan for you there. And it's difficult and it's not easy, but I want you to go there. And so Hagar is obedient and she experiences God transforming her through her as she's obedient to God. And I think this is his thing for us too, is like this, like people. As you are, God cares for you, but because he cares for you, he refuses to leave you as you are. And when we see him for how he is, that he is a God who loves us, cares for us, and values us, and we entrust ourselves to him and we say, okay, God, whatever you want, I'm in, he transforms us. And he makes us more into the people we were originally created to be. So I guess one of my questions for you is this, like, hey, is there something that you need to bring before the God who loves you and cares for you? Are there things in your life that you need to surrender to him and say, okay, God, I need to confess this. I need to surrender to you in this. I need to be obedient to you in this. Because the reality is you don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to walk away from him because as you are, God cares for you. But because he cares for you, he refuses to leave you as you are. And like Hagar, he is at work in your life. He pursues you. He understands you. He sees you and he loves you. As you are, God cares for you.